Good afternoon, Mountain View community.
Oh, I was expecting action.
Go ahead, Mamadou.
Action. Afternoon. On Mountain View. My name is Mamadou Kane. I'm seeing it here, and this is my journalism teacher, Mr. Hardy.
Yes, Mamadou and I are in journalism class together, 6th period, and we decided we'd try some dialogue. We realized that there are topics we can teach each other about, and one reason for that is we have different perspectives. We talk about the importance of different perspectives in journalism, and a good journalist, Mamadou, raises good questions, but in answering those questions, recognizes that there's different perspectives of those answers. And it's based on people's experience and based on even their culture of learning that they take with them from their experiences, but also their book learning. And you and I stand in different perspectives because of our age, because of who we are and how our lives were and how our education was. And we decided we'd explore that with a topic that you're passionate about, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Today, we're going to be discussing the autobiography of Malcolm X. Now, Malcolm X is a very controversial, but absolutely paramount figure in history, black history, and in human history, because of what he embodied, his message of pride, self-reliance, and self-defense, but also his legacy of embodying so much righteousness that is in humanity. Humility, confidence, flexibility, inflexibility, always a love of learning, always improving himself, and absolutely devoted to his cause. So today, we're going to be asking questions of each other about Malcolm, his legacy, and we're going to be especially focusing on chapter 1 of his autobiography called Nightmare.
So chapter 1 is something that you wanted to talk about. You approached me wanting to write reflections on each chapter, actually. And there's so much to each chapter, but you shared with me the text of chapter 1, which I hadn't read until then. And it made me realize how much we can continue to learn from our students and their curiosity. So as I read chapter 1, we then entered into a dialogue on our Google Documents, shared documents, and we just said, let's try it. Let's ask each other's questions and be as honest as we can about those answers. So looking at the first question is from me. I said, Mamadou, how and when did you first hear about Malcolm X?
Very interesting. The first time I heard about Malcolm X I was probably about 5 or 6 years old from a DVD titled Born to Learn. It was in an Islamic DVD show called Adam's World. They had a brief sketch detailing Malcolm's life in summation about how he witnessed horrible things happen to his friends and family and to himself simply because of the color of his skin. How he later joined the Nation of Islam and began preaching black separatism. After all he experienced with racism, he firmly believed that the black and the white could never live in peace together and that nothing could change his mind about that. It talked about how he later went into Hajj pilgrimage and was shocked at what he saw. People of all different colors treating each other like brothers and sisters with humility and courtesy and kindness. About how he later changed his name to El Hajj Malik Shabazz and became a true Muslim and left the Nation of Islam. That's basically where my knowledge ended at the time. I was too young to really comprehend any of this.
So that's what's interesting to me, is you started hearing about him at a young age through a TV program, a cartoon, but you also heard about him through your mother, who is, our mothers are our first teachers for all of us, but for you in particular, your mother was your teacher at home for most of your education
Mm-hmm.
until you came to Mountain View,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Correct.
And so this is a story we talk about in our learning, the things we keep coming back to and learn deeper. The story of this man and this biography and the message is something you kept coming back to on deeper levels, and here you are now. You began hearing about him at 5 or 6, and how old are you now?
19.
19. So, in a sense, you've had a scholarly pursuit of the life and message of this man, your whole life as a student. That's pretty powerful. And so it makes me think back to my own experience and my own perspective on learning about Malcolm X. And so you've said that he is the spark, and that his social and historical circumstances were the fuel to the fire of the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 1960s. This is something I learned about, the civil rights movement, but predominantly through the voices and the quotations and the lifting up of the legacy of Martin Luther King. A Christian minister, a man who had black and white followers, who maybe, as you've stated, was kind of elevated a bit by both in terms of whitewashed. You might have even said. Okay, so my question, again, just to follow up, did your first awareness of Malcolm X bring any spark of understanding that's evolved over time? Obviously, it has, right? It's evolved over time. But you mentioned Born to Learn. Born to Learn was a series that you watched. Adam's World, and the episode was called Born to Learn. It was an early TV program.
Correct.
Right? And I think you explained that in your answer already. So let's see. The next question I had is, how did you pursue your childhood learning, and did you have any opportunities to teach? What were the questions that you wanted to address when learning about Malcolm X? For me, I became interested in history because from a young age I was always interested in hearing about family stories, right? But that's a family culture, that's a family perspective, that's a different cultural viewpoint. Maybe it's similar to you, and it shapes how here we are as teacher and student in different perspectives. We learn through our culture of our family. So again, how did you pursue your learning with a sense of teaching and raising good questions about what you were hearing?
I was, of course, taught more than I thought knowledge at a young age, but when I came of age enough to understand, and around my preteen and teenage years, I then started delving deeper into all these civil rights activists and important black figures. Malcolm X was the main one. I especially got into it after watching Spike Lee's 1992 biopic about the shining black prince.
So that's interesting that we both, I'm 49, you're 19, but we both became aware of these civil rights series and documentaries. Maybe in similar time periods of, but for you, in other words, similar time periods in our lives, like in high school. I can remember in high school and really more into college in the 1990s, for example, for me, starting to watch certain series on civil rights. This one was a 1987 production called Eyes on the Prize. Eyes on the Prize was a more kind of comprehensive overview of the civil rights movement, but it's still, I can remember my perspective of Malcolm X being limited, being the one who said, I can only be nonviolent with those who are nonviolent with me, right? Being the one who was more open to responding with violence, the more militant one. I can remember going more in depth to the legacy of Martin Luther King. Could this be because he was the Christian minister with the Christian message whereas Malcolm X was more complex when he converts to Islam, and people